I suppose, living out here in the countryside in New Cumnock in East Ayrshire, we lived in a small home just outside the town. So as a boy, getting a bike was a great leap forward. That was you could travel around the area and get up the town on your bike. So it was marvellous. The Holy Grail in Scotland was to have a Flying Scot. This was the machine. If you think motor cars, you think of Ferrari. In the cycling world in Scotland, there can be only one, and it's a Flying Scot. The whole history of Flying Scots, the company was started in 1900 by David Rattray and his sister Agnes in Macausland Street in Glasgow. Through to about the 1920s, he built up this bike shop and bike business, and then he took on a much younger business partner, Jack Smith. The shop expanded. There was a demand growing after the First World War in the late 20s and that for handmade lightweight racing machines in Scotland, and they tapped into this market. They really got going in 1935 with a shop in Murray Street, and they started churning out these hand-built, bespoke, lightweight racing frames. And between 1900 through to its demise in 1983, the firm went bust in 1983. Apparently about 15,000 bikes and frames were built and sold, and they travelled around the world. There was orders for Australia, America, New Zealand, you name it. There's Flying Scots round the globe. And many, many of them still exist. There's still a huge interest in them. They are just beautiful machines. They ride beautifully. They've got a whippiness to them, they say. They've this whippiness, when you go around corners and bends. They just flow, they're just beautifully made things, and so well balanced and engineered, handmade and beautiful detail. The lug work, where the main tubes are fitted together, all the fancy lug work there, they're works of art. They really are. All these bikes, some of them are 60, 70 years old now, and they're as good as the day they were built. The frames are as good and sound and strong as the day that they were built. Absolutely amazing. So how eco-friendly is this? This thing that is built to, if you look after it, it'll virtually last forever. All the bikes in here, you can put some air in the tyres, jump on them and go. Billy Connolly famously had a Flying Scot as well. In fact, I nearly bought it. It was for sale on eBay, and I hummed and hawed about it, but it was just slightly big for me, and that put me off. But I should have bought it because it wasn't a fortune at that time, and it would have been a nice thing to have. It had the biggin on the top tube, the biggin. Lovely. It's still out there, that bike, it still exists. As a poet, and I'm widely published as a poet, I've written a very unique, special 15 sonnet redoublet on Flying Scots. These poems and a jazz suite was written to accompany these poems, and it was just, I read it at the big Stanza Poetry Festival in St Andrews a few years back, and somebody said to me afterwards, he says, it's a love poem to cycling. And I suppose I hadn't thought it that way, but I suppose it is, because cycling was always a great love of mine. I grew up with it. I've never fallen out of love with it. So it is basically a set of love poems to cycling. David Rattray died in 1950, and then Jack Smith died in 1972, and really those were the last nails in the business, for the Flying Scots. Now they're pretty much gone, and they're collectors' things now. And there are quite a group, a wee dedicated bunch of eccentric nutcases like myself that just love these bikes and other bikes. There's a few other things in the collection. There's a couple of Colnagos there. Colnago probably, like Carlsberg Lager, probably the best bikes in the world, next to a Flying Scot, of course. I enjoy them immensely. I get great pleasure out of these bikes. They're just, fantastic things. It was never done for material gain. It's almost a spiritual thing, building these bikes, setting them up, getting everything working like a Swiss watch, you know, fine-tuning it and getting everything working, and then getting the gear on and going out and riding these bikes, just doing quiet country roads. You know, I'm not aiming to get from A to B in a record time. You know, I'll stop here and there, I'll go off the bike, I'll enjoy the countryside, enjoy wildlife, enjoy history. So it's just being out there in the Scottish countryside on a Flying Scot. You know, what better thing could there possibly be?